Alright, now that we are able to read a barcode, we actually have to create a listener so that we can check if there are changes to that barcode.txt file or if the robot is requesting a new barcode to be read. So I'm going to close this. Let's also check the barcodes. As you can see, the barcodes.txt file has been created. If I open up this file, you can see that here's the text. So in the first line, you have another barcode, and in the second line, we have the code 128, which is the barcode type. So let's create the listener. Open Thonny again, but I'm going to hit New File. Alright. So let's do the imports first. So we're going to import from watchdog.observers import observer. So from the events, import file system event handler. Oops. Missed the B there. Okay, now there are a few imports for the listener script. The first two imports are the watchdog, which is required. Oh, I spelled watchdog wrong here. Let's put the H. There we go. Well, the watchdog is for checking the file to see if a change is being made to that file. This makes the script a lot more efficient where we're not opening and closing and reading the file the whole time to check if there's a change. The network tables and the network tables NT property will be used to send data between the Vision script and the robot's code, so the VS Code side, a lot easier. And then the threading is used to create a thread to wait for the network tables to actually be connected and set up before the script actually runs. Then for the OS is needed for some other background things that we will go over. Okay, so first things first is that as we'll be running this script as a startup script, we're going to make sure to create the barcodes.txt file so that if anything ever happens, that file is there so that we can make sure that there's no opening and closing errors that come up. So create barcodes file. So I'm going to go f equals open. So I have to do /home/pi. And I'm going to use the write function. Now, there is the x function, which creates a file. However, if the file is already created, using x will cause an error. So I'm going to use w, because w will just create the file, or it'll just open the file and erase everything in the file, but it won't toss an error if the file is already created, which is what we want. And then I'm going to close the file right away. So now we have to create the connection listener to see if network tables has been connected. The reason for this is network tables doesn't start right away on the VMX. There is a period of time where the robot manager has to start first, and then once the robot manager has started and all its scripts are running, then the network tables server starts. So we're going to wait for the server to start before we continue anywhere with the script. So first off, we have to create the thread to make sure network tables is connected. So to do that, we're going to do conditional equals threading dot condition. So we're creating a conditional thread. And I'm just going to create a flag. So notified and notified is actually an array, so we're going to create an array. Okay. However, it's only a one index array, but it comes as an array. So now we actually have to create the listener function. So define connection listener. Oops. There we go. And then with condition, which is the conditional thread, so what's happening here is that when we call connection listener, if the connected flag is true, then it will tell the conditional thread that that condition has been satisfied. So once the condition is satisfied, it'll call these statements after that will set the notified flag to true and update the conditional thread. Alright. And now we want to create the network tables. So here I am initializing the network tables and I'm assigning the server as my IP address of the VMX. So as you can see, the 10.12.34.2 matches my Wi-Fi access point of 10.12.34.2. Now if you change your team number, of course you'll have to change these 4 digits that are inside that server. And now I'm going to create the network tables connection listener so that we can wait to see when network tables is connected. So what we've done here is we've added the connection listener. As you can see, our function is going to be called here. And we're asking us to immediately notify when it's connected. And now we have to essentially wait until that connection is satisfied. So what's happening here is we're saying with the conditional thread, if notified is not true, just wait. So it'll pause the conditional thread indefinitely until that connection is created. Now, after the connection is made, we can create our vision table. So, create vision tables. So to create the tables, we're going to use the NT property. So first off, I'm going to create there are three tables we're going to use. So there's NT barcode data, NT property, okay. So the NT barcode is our local variable that will be used inside the script. And we're saying that this barcode data is a network table's property that is keyed at this value with this default value. It's important to always have the slash as the first character when creating the table. So what we're saying is our vision property will be inside a vision tab, and the data that it'll be assigned to is barcode data. And the second parameter here is the default value. So in this case, I'm assigning a default value of null, which is as a string. So now I'm going to go with the barcode type. So I also want this in the vision tab, but this time it's going to be named barcode type. And it's also going to have a default value of null as a string. And then I want the robot to tell me when I have to read a new barcode. So I'm going to create a Boolean value now. So NT read barcode. So if you notice the difference now, because I want a Boolean, this to be Boolean, I use a default value of false, which then tells the barcode table entry that it's a Boolean data type. You cannot change data types once you have assigned the data type. It will cause errors in the long run. Once my tables are created, I want to actually get the table so that I can use it. So in this case, table is going to equal to network tables dot get table vision, which corresponds to vision. This is the table. This is the table entry that is part of the table, and this is the value of the table entry. We just want the table so that we can directly assign values to the table entries. So now that the table has been created, we're going to create this Watchdog system handler that reads the files to make sure that there are no issues. So to do this, we actually have to create a class. No class my handler. Now in this case, we're actually passing the whole file system event handler that we imported up here into this class. So that allows us to extend the class itself and get a specific function. In this case, we want to do on modified self event. So that way, if the file that we specify is modified, we want you to execute this code. So we have to do a try catch. like a try except in Python, because if there is an error, we don't want it to toss an error. If it tosses an error, it will crash the script, which means the script will no longer be running. So in this case, we're going to File, Open. Remember the /barcodes.txt. And this time, we are going to be in read mode, so we use R. So it'll be table.put string. So first we need the key, which is barcode data. And then we're going to do file.readline. What this does is it says, oh, we want to use the vision table, and then we want to put a string value, which is the file.readline, into the key of barcode data. So that means we're replacing this null with whatever is read on the first line of the file, which, if you remember, was the barcode data. As we can go back to here, the first line is the barcode data. Now we're going to go table.putString barcode type file.readline. Now we want to put the second line, which is the barcode type, and assign it to the key barcode type in the table so that we can update the second null. And as we're done, we can now close the file. Remember to always close the file. Now we need the accept. However, we're not going to put anything here, so we're just going to say pass. And that's it for the class. It's very simple. Now we need to add a few lines that we can set up the observer and watchdog correctly. This says that our event handler is the class myHandler. And now we're saying that observer, which is a local definition, is equal to the observer import. So this is essentially creating the classes and assigning it to a local object. Oops, observer. So now we want to schedule this. Alright, so here we're scheduling the event handler into the observer class, and we're stating that the path to the file that we want it to watch is the .barcodes.txt. And then, of course, we want to actually start the observer. This will start the observer. Once the observer started, we just need to create a while loop so that our code is always running, as we always want this code to run. So we're going to do while true. And in here, we also want to put a statement to read the read barcode Boolean value to see if we want to read a new barcode. So we can just do a simple if statement. So if table.get Boolean. So what happens here is, if you notice above we've said put string, so this is writing to the table. But when we do a get, we are actually reading. So I am getting a Boolean value. I'm using the key read barcode, which is up here, read barcode. Now the second statement is the default value in case it can't read this key. This is required. So if I can't read barcode, it'll just put false here. And as false does not equal true, it won't run the code. So inside here, I'm going to put table dot put boolean barcode. Now the reason I'm immediately signing it to false when it's true is that I don't want this to be called over and over and over and over again. So I'm flipping the value so that it does not call this again, as the user only wants to be pushed once and not continuously. Now to actually tell the system to get a new barcode, we're going to use the OS. So os.system. Now we're going to put the actual command. Now if you remember, our command was Python 3 read barcode .py. Right? Now this might not exactly work because the script might be running in a different area. So it's always best to define the exact path. So home.py / read barcode.py. And then when we're not reading the actual Boolean value, or we just want the loop to do whatever. So we're going to go try pass, and then the except. It's actually going to be a keyboard interrupt. Now what happens is when we run this script, if we hit the Control C and the terminal, it will close this script. When we set this as a startup script, this function won't actually be called at all because as a startup script and in the background there is no keyboard interrupts. So this is more here for a testing purpose. So that's essentially it for the listener script. So I'm going to save it. Remember, I want to be in the home Pi area. So I'm going to save this as watchdog listener.py. You cannot save this file as watchdog.py as you will get an error. So it's good to save it as something longer. So in this case, I'm putting watchdog listener.py. I'm going to go ahead and save it. I can close both of these as I no longer need it open. We can't actually test the watchdog listener as we have not written the robotic side of the code yet. But what we can do is now assign it as the startup script to run at the beginning. So to do that, we're going to open terminal. We're going to go sudo, so for a super user do, nano, which is the easy program to edit in the terminal. We use the path etc. and then rc.local. This is what's called when the VMX boots up. So sudo nano rc.local, and you will see this the nano pop up. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and you want to put this line of code above exit. So in this case, it'll be Python 3 /home /pi /watchdog listener. listener.py, and we're going to add an ampersand at the end, as we don't want this to run continuously. We want this to actually be split up into a separate thread and run in the background, and that's what this ampersand does. Now to save, we're going to hit Control X, then we're going to hit Y to say yes, and the last thing is to hit enter, and we're now saved. So when I boot up again, that script will be running. So let's test the script just to see that it's working. Python 3 .py. So if you see, if I run the script, it hangs the terminal because it is not a separate file. It's just running, and there's no outputs. And then if I hit Control C, we get the keyboard interrupt, as you can see here, to end it. So that's why we add that ampersand at the end to actually end it. So now that we are done on the VMX side, as we set up the listener to always be listening on boot up, I can now close this and we can move to the VS Code side, where we will write code to tell the robot to grab a barcode and send that barcode back to us.